Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rachak Quadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And in this lesson, I wanted to deal with the topic of the hidden hand of gradualism. Okay, the hidden hand of gradualism, which most of us are familiar with, right? Or should be familiar with the term gradualism, what it means, and why I titled it The Hidden Hand of Gradualism, right? Because over the course of decades, right, not just years, over the course of decades, you've had these elites, and these world rulers, which are, you have them, they go by different secret societal names and so on and so forth. But behind the scenes, covertly and overtly, they have conditioned the minds of the people to where they've left what you call like back doors right into the minds of people. And something I was thinking of, which also plays into this, is how there are certain aspects of the human mind or the brain that work a certain way. And there are some, what people will call like, I wouldn't say a fallacy, right? But what people would like look at as something that can be exploited or taken advantage of, right? Like humans are susceptible to do X, Y, and Z, or under certain conditions, it's common for somebody to react a certain kind of way, right? There's certain tricks like that, like valuation due to relativity, right? Like you value something based on its relative value, right? If the only car that existed, right, when you go back in time, when they first invented automobiles and so on and so forth, they weren't like people were spending a lot of money on that, right? People were like, yo, this is dope, this is lit, like that was the top joint, that was the thing. Today, if you look at some of the olden cars, at one point they were all the fuss, as they would say, but now they're not, right? Now, because you have more advanced cars, you have cars with more luxurious features, they're not considered all that, right? And so similarly, and that's because if you were to put like, I don't know, a 1980s Honda or something like that, I'm just throwing out some numbers here, next to like a 2020, obviously people would look at it and be like, oh hell no, I'm not getting that car. Why? Because you're valuing it relative to a more modern car. So in any case, that's one example, right? When you oftentimes in marketing and economics and stuff like that, they use these kinds of mental tricks, right? Advertisement and so on, in order to get people to buy their stuff or invest in their stuff. So you get the point. Now, this is just part of how the brain normally works. But one thing that they have managed to do, which leads into the precept that I have, and I'll get it soon, Lord willing, in the book of Psalm 64, right? They do a diligent search on all things, right? And so they have researchers, scientists, and so on that research these things, human behavior, psychology, and all of these things, and they exploit these kinds of behaviors, right? They look at, okay, so if humans tend to behave this way under this condition or under that condition, well, now let's condition their minds, right? Let's prime them and condition their minds so that they're more susceptible to that flaw, right? If you can call it a flaw, right? So now make them more used to it, constantly put them in situations like that where that behavior, that irrational behavior, becomes a commonplace thing, right? So as to where it would be a one-off situation where you would do something that doesn't even make sense, and you'd be like, why the hell did I even do that? I don't know why I would even make that decision. They look at that, they study that, and they say, oh, so given these conditions, this person is likely to make a decision that they know doesn't make sense, but they'll do it anyway. So Oh, one example, which this might also be a good one. I mentioned this in the previous video. I don't remember which video, but in casinos, right? The reason they use chips over actual cash is because to your mind, when you're using actual cash, you're not gonna want to spend as much, right? You're gonna be more cautious and careful with your money because it's money. It looks like money. But when you are using chips, even though it's still money or it represents money, it doesn't feel like it. That's a part of those tricks, those mental tricks. So casinos exploit that, right? And that's why they make so much money, and that's why they have you use those chips. So, given an example that I just gave, hopefully that makes it clearer. The point that I'm making here, these elites have studied that, and they've been like, oh, okay, so let us, for example, take the casino example. Well, let's put that kind of logic or that kind of situation in other cases where it's not just a casino, and then we can get people to spend more money. You go to the arcade. You want to know why you end up spending $40 in the arcade? Because you're buying. You got to go to the machine, right? And then you're buying tokens, and then you're using those tokens. And so when they say something like, I don't know, this costs like 4 tokens. 4 tokens can be $1, all right? But you're not seeing it as $1. You're just seeing it as 4 tokens. And then you're like, oh damn, I only have 2 more tokens. Like, all right, let me go buy a couple more. And next thing you know, you purchasing $20, $10, $15, and then your bread is gone. So they see that, and then they exploit that, right? And then they say, yo, you know what? Now that we've made these people behave like this, they take the abnormal behavior and they turn it into your daily norm, right? Now this becomes how you normally behave, right? This becomes something that is not like a one-off situation. It doesn't take a special case to trigger this irrational behavior inside of you. They do that. And once they have you conditioned to that level or to that point, then they can start to take advantage of that, right? Very easily. So when the scriptures talk about their heart being deep, they do a diligent search. The Lord has opened up their minds. Of course, this is mostly in wickedness, because the end goal of this is not for the benefit of us, right? It's really for the detriment of people, but it's to serve their lust for power, right? Remember, these devils have a God complex, and they're trying to do whatever it takes to achieve that goal that they have. So in any case, the way they're able to prime people so well is through gradualism, right? That's why it's the hidden hand of gradualism. It's a slow process that can easily be sped up the more people get dumbed down to it. So I'll give you another example. When you start learning how to do anything, whether it's a new sport or a new activity or whatnot, typically if it's like a physical activity, there's prerequisites, right? There's like, if you're gonna run, there's warm-ups, right? You jog a little bit, you do some stretches, you get your body warmed up, and then you start your workout. When you're a beginner at that, the first few times, it's gonna take you a while, right? It's gonna take you longer. You may not have the stamina to jog, whatever, 2 laps in under whatever time that normally people would do. So it'll take you a while. You're still trying to remember, which stretch comes before which, and so on. But the longer you do it, the more you do it, the more you do it, the faster it becomes. So now it doesn't take you as long. The second you get there, you already know what you got to do, X, Y, and Z. You're already doing your workout. Similarly, in the other side of the spectrum, as they continue to prime people, right, and condition them, eventually they're able to do these things quicker. That's why now you see them pushing so many things on the people in a much quicker, because now people are in a perfectly dumbed down state to where they can just throw whatever at them, and they're like, in the sunken place. Yep, they're gonna fall right for it. So it starts off with that behind the scenes. You cause scenarios, you see how they react, you bring solutions, right? You cause problems, you see how they react, you bring solutions, right? You gather surveys. Oh, how are the people feeling about this? This, that, and the third. So they're doing all of these things, right? Let me see if I can pull this up as I quoted it. Psalm 64:6, they search out iniquities, they accomplish a diligent search both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep. You see, and this is because the Most High has given them the technology and the ability to do so. And being the demons that they are, how do you think they do that? They experiment. That's how they if they're coming up with hypotheses about humans, how the brain works and X, Y, and Z. How do you think they confirm those things? How do you think they come up with plans around their ideas? They experiment, and that's where you have your social. There's something called a social experiment. Okay, a social experiment is pretty much what you'll see where they use actual humans, actual people. Some might be aware, some might not. Most of the time, they're not aware, and they'll put them, to do a certain scenario and see how do people behave, how do people react. You have your control group, and then your different experimental groups and so on and so forth. But they experiment on people, right? And so the larger the undertaking, the larger your sample size. And that's why you'll have certain events that occur on a countrywide level, some on a citywide level, some on a statewide level, some on a regional wide level. And then you're like, yo, this thing came and then all of a sudden it went. And then everything is back to like how it was, like nothing happened. Yeah, those are a part of the experiments that they are doing, on the people to confirm their theories. And then they plan around it. And then they enact whatever it is they need to enact to shift towards that. But with this hidden hand of gradualism, at the end of the day, the Lord made it so the believers, the true believers, are immune to that, right? We see when you're aware of what they're trying to do or what they're doing, it's not as effective, right? If a magician is about to show you a magic trick and you know the trick in and out, where he's hiding the card. When he does all his you got to do this, and then he's moving his fingers this way, he's saying all these things. You're like, in your mind, bro, all you're gonna do is hide the card between your middle finger and your thumb, bend your hand a certain way so nobody can see the card. I know where it's at. So all the theatrics and all that, it's not gonna affect you because you know the secret behind the trick. You know what the end goal is. You know what he's trying to do, and you know how he's gonna do it. So you're just like, all right, now what? And that's the position the Lord has put his elect in by giving us, Lord willing, will be of that number, the spirit, to be able to see through this deception, right? So where we can see how people are falling for it. And by seeing that alone proves that we are not, falling for it, right? The scriptures say if it were at all possible, he should deceive the very elect. So it's not necessarily that this devil is just like terrible at being a devil. If he was, you wouldn't get to this position, right? The Most High put a certain spirit on them to be conniving, right? They leave breadcrumbs when they want you to figure out certain things to a certain degree, right? They purposely leak information when they want you to get information. But it's that the Lord has given us the spirit of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that we can see through these things that these endeavors, right? And these things they're trying to do. That's why it doesn't affect us like it does the average individual, right? And as the scriptures say, the name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and are safe. So even though the deception is not working, eventually they're going to resort to violence, right? 2nd Ezra 16, 2nd Ezra 15, and many other precepts. They're going to resort to the sword. And when that time comes, the Lord got us protected on that front as well. So he got our minds protected, and he's going to preserve us physically as well. So that's why it's a very beautiful thing to be a believer in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, because we're all set on all fronts. We just got to do and obey what the Lord told us to do, right? What he has required of us, and then we're good. But if you want to fall, make enemies of the Lord, right, and trust in man who's subject to the Lord, you're going to end up in a bad case. Okay, and that's what the world is getting ready to find out right now. It's a very interesting and sad case, because majority of people today, even at the brink of destruction, still don't see what's going on, right? They're still concerned about the things of this world. When the society is crumbling right before their eyes, they're still stuck in this crumbling society. And because they've been conditioned so well, right, entrapped so deeply that they crumble with society. Society goes low, they go low. It goes lower, they go lower. And they don't even realize it. So ultimately, we need, it's not that we want or we just desire. No, we need deliverance. All right. And that's done on purpose. The Lord designed it so at the point where Yahushua would make his return, the world would be in need of deliverance. Okay, it's not going to be just something that we want. The whole world is going to be in need of deliverance, and that's going to be the the appearance of the deliverer. So anyway, with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.